want to go and where you want to be in your life. So how do you decide that? Well, you decide that by setting a clearly structured SMART goal. So very quickly, we know we've all heard these before. S is specific, but it also needs to be simple. Your goal that you're wanting to create in those different areas of your life must be specific and simple. It needs to be measurable. So how do you know you got it? Obvious, but it also needs to be meaningful. You need to have some emotion tucked in there as well. It needs to be achievable and agreed, relevant and realistic, and finally timely and towards your outcome. We don't move away from what we don't want. We always need to make sure we structure our goals towards what we do want. Yeah. And to look at the psychology of a SMART goal, 5% of our thinking day to day is with our conscious mind. So we're consciously aware 5% of the day. 95% of the day, we're running on our subconscious programming and habits. And this is what we're going to deep dive into this afternoon, is those belief systems where our programs and our habits reside. So when we write a SMART goal, typically that's using the 5% of our conscious mind. Well, what about that other 95%? How can we tap into and create abundance from our subconscious mind, that 95%? Well, the way to do that, guys, is once you've made your SMART goal, first you need to have clarity, which is following the SMART, pretty simple. You need to focus on that goal regularly, right? So a lot of SMART goals, whether they're personal goals or corporate goals, people will make their goals, they'll write them down, and then they'll put that paper away, never to be seen again. So we need to focus on our goals regularly. And by regularly, I mean we need to repeatedly focus on our goals. So just like driving a car, when you first started, it was a very conscious process. You had to learn. You were really, really clear. You got clear instructions. You really focused on the gears and the clutch and everything. But then you did it with repetition and repetition and repetition. Now you can drive almost on autopilot. Yeah? And that's for sure what you want to be able to do with your goal is you create your goal, make it crystal clear, you focus on it regularly, and you focus on it with repetition, repetition, repetition. Now, what you've done is you lock that SMART goal into your subconscious mind. So even when you're sleeping, you're thinking of ways on how to achieve that goal, right? So this is step number one in creating abundance, is to really, really get clear on what is your destination? What does abundance look like to you? And get really, really clear about it. And then begin to surround yourself with your goals, right? So you can see them and read them every day. Another really good tip there to use your subconscious mind is to create a vision board. Use images that represent the goal that you want to achieve. Why? Because the language of the subconscious mind is images and emotion, right? So choose images that evoke an emotion, and then you're on the way to pulling that goal towards you because you've engaged that 95% of your subconscious mind. Cool. So that's the turbo review of last week. Getting back to today, we are focusing on how to break through from boredom to brilliance. So let's take a quick look at the definition here. Feeling weary is kind of like tired because one is unoccupied or lacks interest in one's current activity. So that's the dictionary definition of what bored is. So what is our boredom trying to tell us, right? So emotions, right? Because boredom will show up differently for different people, and your boredom is a message to you. And what do I mean by that is boredom is an emotion. And our emotions are a signal from our subconscious mind, that 95%, that is the realm of emotions, that tell us what we are currently focusing on. So let me say that again. Emotions are a signal from our subconscious mind that tell us what we're currently focusing on. In other words, if we are experiencing positive and uplifting emotions, that's a clue that we're focusing on the things that we do want in our life. We're focusing on positive things. negative emotions or limiting emotions. As we experience those emotions, that gives us a clue that we're focusing on the things that we don't want. So clearly, this is another reason, and this links back to the T in SMART goal, right? The T in SMART goal is timely, obvious, by when will you achieve that goal, but also towards what you do want. So in other words, if we keep focusing on what we don't want and what we don't want, and this might go wrong, or the anxiety or the fear or the anger, and if we continue to focus on those things that we don't want, that will give us even more negative emotion. And it becomes a cycle, right? The more negative emotion we feel, the more negative thoughts we have. The more negative thoughts we have, the more negative emotion we feel. And it becomes a cycle of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking. And there is a synergy between the two. And if you don't break that synergy, that's what causes depression. That's what causes heavy anxiety and fear, because we're in this loop and around and around and around it goes. So if you're not sure on what you're focusing on throughout the day, simply check in with your emotions. Are your emotions typically above the line? In other words, are they more positive, or are your emotions below the line? Are they more negative? That will give you a clue as to what you're focusing on in your life at the moment, right? So a quick example of how I use this when I'm working with leaders around the world. We here at Coachology, we get engaged a lot for doing leadership programs for organizations all throughout Asia. And a big part of that is problem solving. And so we only spend about 10 minutes on the actual problem, right? So what do I mean by that? Generally speaking, people are really, really good at focusing on the problem. But if you focus on the problem, then your emotion's going to drop down. And when you're in that low emotional state, it's really, really hard to be creative and think of new ideas to solve the problem. So in a typical workshop, I'll spend about 10 minutes to get clear on what the problem is, to talk about the elephant in the room, to just get really, really clear on what it is. Then, as quickly as possible, begin to focus on the solution, right? And then that's when we start to do the brainstorming and the creativity processes to get people to focus on what they want. And of course, what they want is the solution. So as they start to focus on the solution, their emotions go up. Now they're more resourceful, they're more active, they're positive thinking, they're thinking about possibilities and opportunities. When we're focusing on the problem, when we're focusing on what we don't want, the energy drops, the emotion drops. We start to blame the economy, blame the competition, blame that department because they're not pulling their weight, and all of these kinds of things. And then around and around it goes. So a quick way to check on where your mind is at in terms of your thinking from moment to moment is simply check in with your emotions, right? If your emotions are low, then your thinking is going to be low. Yeah. So if you focus too hard on the problem, the solution can often evade you, right? So what I mean by that, it's not about being ignorant. It's not about putting our head in the sand. It's not about la 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 la, no problems here, or being, oh, Mr. Positive. It's about being realistic, to acknowledge the problem for what it is, but no bigger than it is, no more than it is, just what it is. Accept it for what it is. Now, once you accept it and you're clear on the different dimensions of that problem, now you can start to focus on the solution, right? So it kind of looks a little bit like this, guys. So across the line here is above the line is positive emotion. Below the line is negative emotion. So when we focus on what we don't want, that's a little circle with the red part on it. When we focus on what we don't want, when we focus on all of the things that could go wrong or might go wrong, when we focus too much on the fear or the anxiety that maybe other people are experiencing, as we focus on that, then we're going to feel bored, we're going to feel anger, worry, fear, anxiety, concern, depression, sadness. and all of those other negative emotions. Any other negative emotions you can think of, put them below the line there. And they are the emotions you're going to feel if you're focusing on what you don't want. When you're focusing on problems and drama, or when you're focusing too much on uncertainty as being a bad thing. Yes, we're in uncertain times, but how you choose to focus on that, how you choose to frame that uncertainty will determine how you feel. And clearly, if you're feeling those negative emotions are going to influence your thinking, to give you more negative thoughts and then more negative emotion, and around and around, and it goes. And it happens again and again, and it becomes a trap. So as much as possible, you want to be able to focus on what you do want. What are the possibilities? What are the opportunities? What are the solutions? What can I do differently? How can I grow? How can I contribute? Whatever that is for you, as you begin to focus on what you do want, well, you're going to experience emotions of love, creativity, peace, happiness, fulfillment, growth, and all of those excitement, all of those kinds of positive emotions are going to be the result of focusing on what you do want, right? Now, of course, in life, we move up and down through this spectrum all of the time, right? And we can have various spectrums of emotion in as little as 1 hour, never mind a day or a week or a month. Point being is, where do you spend most of your time? Are you spending most of your time above the line or below the line? If it's below the line, my invitation to you is to ask yourself, what am I focusing on? What am I spending my time on? And a classic example of this is, focusing too much on the media at the moment. No matter what the media says about this, I have found in these last couple of weeks, there's always a directly opposite point of view. Often, sometimes even shared by the same news network, your CNN or CBS or whatever. So there's always a polar opposite point of view. Now, again, this is not about being ignorant and saying, oh, there's no COVID, nothing's not going to affect me, blah, 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 blah. Limit the amount of negative input you're going to allow into your experience called life every day. And if that's 15 or 20 minutes to do some research and find out what's going on in the world, then do that. But I guarantee you, if you're spending 6 hours scrolling through Facebook to look at all these fake news and these conflicting truths out there, then I guarantee you're going to feel below the line. Why? Because that's what you're focusing on. Yeah. So if you're feeling take a look at what is it you're focusing on. What are you allowing into your 5 senses throughout your day? Cool. Abundance. That's another nice positive emotion. So what is boredom? And in a moment, guys, I'd like you to share what is boredom for you, or more specifically, what is your definition of boredom? Okay, I've got a couple of definitions here, and I'd like to hear from you guys too. What is your definition of boredom? And then in a moment, we'll look at how does boredom show up for you. So doing some research through the week before here and in my own personal experience, boredom for me is a lack of direction or a lack of focus. So in other words, a lack of direction is not knowing where I'm moving in life, or a lack of focus is really focusing on the things that we don't want to happen. And that's when boredom or those negative emotions are going to raise their little heads. Not knowing or not being aligned with your purpose. So what do I mean by that is, have you ever met someone that is just, they're all about their purpose. They know what their purpose is and they are driven to achieve their purpose. And our purpose is our why, right? Why do we exist? Why am I on this planet? Why do I do what I do? When you meet someone who's totally clear and totally aligned with their purpose, I'm pretty sure that boredom does not show up for them. Why? Because they know their direction. They know their focus. They know their purpose. They know what they want in life. And their life is revolving around that. So for those kind of people, the people that I've met that are like that, boredom simply does not show up for them. Why? Because they're totally committed and aligned to whatever they want. A lack of stimulation or excitement can also be kind of like a definition of what boredom might be. But what else, guys? I think you've put some comments there. Christy, what have you got? So lack of anything to do, feeling uninterested, lack of being entertained in some way. Yep, not seeing the best thing in life that we can do, right? So maybe, and this comes back to our purpose a little bit, are you aiming high enough in your life? Boredom might be showing itself because you're settling for mediocrity or you're settling for average. That could be a clue. Remember, emotions are a signal from your subconscious mind. So any emotion you're feeling is like your subconscious mind going, hello, pay attention. You're focusing on something that perhaps you shouldn't. So that's what negative emotions are. They're a signal, they're a clue from your subconscious mind that you're not focusing on the right thing. Now, right for you, right for me, that's going to be different. That's going to be subjective depending on what is right for you. Just know that your subconscious mind, that 95%, it's giving you clues with the way that we feel moment to moment. What else, Christy? Unable to see the purpose. So we might not know what our purpose is. I walked through this planet for 30-something years before I knew what my purpose was, right? So don't worry, it's there. You'll find it. And how do you know? How do you know when you found your purpose? Because you live your life more above the line. You live your life more in those positive emotions. You feel driven. You know your why. You know why you get up in the morning. You know why you work those long days and not feel bad about it. So those positive emotions give you a clue that you're on your path. And for some people, that might be getting clear about what you don't want. Yeah, lack of drive can also show up as boredom. No self-development or self-discipline can be another way. Yeah. Not taking action regarding to the situation. Yeah, doing the same thing over and over again. Groundhog Day, right? You've seen that movie, I'm sure, where the guy wakes up again and again and again. But then finally he gets it, right? Brilliant movie. I might even have to watch it again. It's been years since I watched that movie. Yeah, not appreciating the value of the things around you. And that's why appreciation is so important. When you appreciate what you have, right, it's hard to feel bored. Guys, if you're on this call today, you have a lot to be appreciative of. You have a Wi-Fi connection, number one. That's pretty awesome. You're in a room, from what I can see from most of you, so you have a roof over your head. I guarantee you probably have some food in the fridge. So there's probably at least 20 things that we can appreciate and be grateful for. Self-doubt, yep. Laziness, yep. Detaching. So you guys can read the chats there a bit easier than I can. So great ideas there, guys. Here is a few other ones. Same routine again and again and again. That's going to create boredom for sure. Lack of growth, right? This is one of the big ones. So again, our subconscious mind, it knows that our purpose is to grow and evolve. It knows that, right? We know that as children. We crawl, we walk, we talk, we learn. We're hungry to learn. Daddy, daddy, mummy, mummy. As kids, we know our purpose is to grow and evolve. Sometimes, though, as adults, we get into our comfort zone and we think, oh, this is nice. We get to a certain level in our career or business or society or whatever, we kind of get complacent. We kind of get comfortable. Well, if we stay at that level of comfort, what happens after a while, when we come back to that happiness graph, your happiness will begin to subside. Why? Because you're not growing. And it'll show up as feelings and emotions of boredom or frustration or whatever. And that's a real easy clue and signal that you're not growing. right? And so how do you prevent those feelings of boredom? You continually nurture your mind. You find ways to continue to grow, whether it's a webinar or a TED Talk or a book or a workshop or whatever it is. As long as you continually, consciously choose to grow, then that will minimize those negative emotions. Focusing too much on the past is a good way to feel bored. What else is boredom? It's kind of like the procrastination or stuckness that we feel in life, which is kind of linked to not growing. That's how boredom might show up. So yeah, I'd like you to tell us now, please, guys, how does boredom show up for you? So clearly we're all different, we're all unique, we're all one of a kind. You are a limited edition. And so boredom shows up for different people in different ways. So please, in the chat box there, share with us, if you're willing, how does boredom show up for you? So during this week, I was experimenting and taking notes of how do I know when boredom shows up for me? And one good way that I know boredom is coming up for me is when I'm on Facebook. Scrolling through, pick your social media, whatever it is. You know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes to relax and find out what's going on in the world, no problem. But if you're an hour into just mindlessly scrolling through Facebook, that's how boredom shows up for me. That's what it looks like. Sleeping excessively, even when not tired, right? So you've just had a nice sleep for 7 or 8 hours, and you think, oh, I'll just doze, I'll just sleep. And then even though we're not tired, sleeping excessively, this is a clue, right, that boredom is coming up for us. Yep, 1 second. Drinking, smoking, eating, Netflixing, they're all okay, but doing it excessively, doing it too much, and I don't know what the measure of too much is. You need to decide that for yourself. I love a good Netflix binge from time to time. Is it too much though? Is it excessive? And only you know if it's going to be excessive is when you start to feel those feelings of boredom. Right, so what else, guys? Please share with us, how does boredom show up for you? What do you got, Christy? Yep. Frustration. Oh, frustration is a big one, really big. Too much social media. Isolation. Hanging up the washing, yes. Yeah, impatient, right? Impatient in the present moment, and often that can be with people that we care about, right? That we're getting impatient or frustrated. That's a clue that there's something else going on at a deeper level. We're projecting, right? Because we're getting bored, and then that boredom leads to frustration, and then all of a sudden our partner or our friend or our colleague is in our face, and we're blah, and we're just kind of like in their face. We're projecting that frustration and that boredom onto them. Yeah. Yes, lack of ability to focus. Yeah. Yep. So it can come up as laziness or apathy, frustration or snappiness, when you kind of snap at people. And so there are some ways that it can come up. But one thing I want to touch on, and this was from a beautiful email I received through the week, was this question around laziness. I want you to know that what we're talking about here is how boredom shows up for us is going to be different for all of us. And if you've had a real busy, beginning of the year, or you've been working solid, or you've had a lot going on, and now we're in this lockdown or this retreat, as I like to call it, is it okay to be a little bit lazy? Is it okay to sleep in? Is it okay to do nothing and scroll through social media? The answer is yes. And especially if you need to recharge, regenerate, rejuvenate, to get clear. And sometimes it's okay to allow this space of boredom. How do you know, though, when it's gone too far? It's gone too far when you start to feel the negative emotion, right? And so it is a little bit of a balancing act, right? So for example, many years ago, when I was ready to leave Australia, I was ready to leave to go on a 1-year backpacking adventure. And as I was ready to go on this 1-year backpacking adventure, I needed to pack up everything in my house, and I was putting it off, and I was putting it off, and I was putting it off. And the reason I was putting it off was because there was some fear there. Long story short, I got over the fear. I got everything packed up. And then I remember it was a winter's day. This is in Sydney, Australia. And I was lying on the sofa and the sun was coming through. I'd kind of done everything that I needed to get done. And what I realized, I had a little bit of sadness that I was about to leave this house in Australia. It was my first house that I'd ever bought with a mortgage and all of that. And it was such a cool house. And I remember thinking, you know what? I've done everything I needed to do. I'm not going to feel guilty to just be lazy here on the sofa for the next couple of hours. And so as I just chilled on the sofa, I had some music going on in the background. I had the sun shining through the window, just warming me up. I just felt like a lizard in the sun, and there was no guilt. There was no shame. There was no, I should have been doing that. I just let that laziness come over me, and I just enjoyed the moment. And then 2 hours later, I thought, wow, I'm going to miss this place. But you know what? I really appreciate this place and all the memories, everything, the good, the bad, and everything, the fun. And I'm ready now. I'm ready to go on to that next chapter of my life, which was backpacking around the world. And once I just allowed myself to have that time, then I got up and I finished off the packing and putting this away and sending that and cleaning and the deep cleaning with a much higher level of enthusiasm. So use your laziness or your boredom constructively, especially in this time, because it is a retreat. You have this opportunity. So allow yourself to give yourself those times of doing nothing. One question, yes? How can we reconnect with other people? Okay. The way to reconnect with other people is to simply reach out to them, right? And you have at least 10 various options on how we can connect with people. Unless you really like to hug people, right? Which is some of us. Everyone loves a good hug now and then. If you're living by yourself, then that could, and you're missing that physical kind of contact, whether it's a handshake or a high five or a hug or whatever, you can still connect with people using your technology. You can use WhatsApp video call, Line video call, Facebook Messenger video call with the funny little rabbit ears and all these funny things that you can do. Yeah, okay, we'll come to that in a moment as well. But in terms of connection, like I would, speak to my parents about once every 10 days or so. At the moment, I'm calling them up every 3 days. Why? Because I just want to connect with them. They're older, they're retired, they're in Tasmania. I just want to connect with them and make sure that they're okay. So use your technology and simply do it more often, even if it's just a 5-minute check-in. Hey guys, how you going today? Yeah, miss you guys. And put it on the video call, right? So you can see their face. I've been catching up with friends I haven't spoken to in 20 years. So, don't be afraid to just use the technology and reach out to them via a video call. That would be my recommendation, to remain connected with your network. Yeah. And the other question was, how do we overcome the fear? The quickest way, guys, is to focus on what you do want, right? That fear and that anxiety, I can almost guarantee, is because you're spending too much time on focusing on what you don't want, right? You're reading too many news articles, you're reading disinformation and fake news, your friends are sharing. I've just told my friends, don't send me any of that stuff. I'm not interested. I want to focus on my relationship, on growing my business, on serving our community. There's so many other positive things we could be focusing on. And at the end of the session today, I'm going to give you a turbo way on how you're able to do that. So regarding the laziness and the boredom, this is a good way to flip it around. Take a look at this video, which you should be able to hear.
So boredom is a really important emotion. When you're bored, you tend to daydream and your mind wanders. And this is a very, very important part of the creative process. And this is something that we can apply to our day-to-day lives, because if you find that you're stuck on a problem, or you're really worried about something, you can't seem to find a way out, take some time out, just be bored, let your mind wander, and you might just find that that creative solution will pop into your head. So one way that we can really embrace boredom in our lives is to stop swiping and scrolling our boredom away. So what we tend to do is, when we've got a bit of downtime, is that we get our phones out immediately and our devices out. And we're sort of afraid of boredom. We're afraid to let boredom into our lives. We get a dopamine hit from new and novel experiences. And of course, everything that is stimulating is new and novel. And so the more we have, the more we need. And this kind of lowers the threshold for boredom. So paradoxically, the way to deal with boredom is to allow more of it into your life. So put your phones away and just let yourself be and let your mind wander. That's really important, so that you can get used to it and you can learn to manage it yourself.
So I thought that was a really valid point there, is that all boredom or laziness is not bad. If you're going to be lazy, let yourself be lazy. Give yourself a time limit. If it's going to be an hour or two, then do that. And then after that, get back into being productive. Focus on the things that you want. You know, take a walk around the block. Some of the most creative ideas that Christy and I have come up with in these last couple of weeks have been on our daily walk. We're walking about 5 or 6 kilometres per day, going out around walking around the block as an extended trip around. So here's a couple of top tips for overcoming boredom. Please share your tips into the chat as well. Learn something new. Whenever you're learning something new, it brings you back more into the present moment, right? As you're digesting and you're creating new neural networks within your brain, right? As you're learning something new, that's going to help you to overcome the boredom. Change your routines, right? So if you're doing exactly the same thing every day, day after day after day, whether it's the way that you shower, get dressed, and have breakfast in the morning, mix it up a little bit. Do something different, anything different. Whether, you know, well, many of us are not driving to work at the moment, but maybe you can drive a different route. If you're jogging around the same direction, try the opposite direction or in somewhere new. What happens is, when you're outside of your routine, that 5% of your conscious mind is like a flashlight. So now it's looking for new things in that environment. And those new things are going to trigger new thoughts. And as you have new thoughts, you're creating new neural networks. What happens is, when we're on the routine again and again and again, it's like the hamster wheel. And when you're on that hamster wheel, then we're just pretty much unconscious, just moving through the motions. And yeah, our mind can kind of drift. But the problem is, our mind can drift to the negative things, or the focus on the things that we don't want to happen. As you change up your routines, it forces you back into the present moment, therefore more conscious, and you can more easily control your focus when you're consciously aware. Exercise, walk, run, yoga, whatever that is for you. What else, guys? What tips would you mind to share for overcoming boredom when it comes up for you? Chat with a loved one. Connect with the nature. We're walking around the block here. I've seen houses and trees and flowers and cats and dogs that I've never seen before. And they were always there, right? What else? Yep. Gaming, yeah, play some games if that's what's fun for you. Listen to the music. Podcasts are another great way. So clearly you can see in the chat there, guys, every one of the ideas that people are sharing. Reprogram your thinking, just general reading or a TED Talk. Make and execute a to-do list. So this is something that came up for me during the week. I was thinking, yeah, what are some other tips to overcome boredom? Well, what I did one night was I wrote a list of the things that I was going to do around the house the next day. So that when I woke up in the morning, I just like, okay. And then I just got on with making those improvements around my house or on the business. Visit or plan to visit somewhere new. We're a bit limited to where we can visit or go at the moment, but you can certainly start to plan and think about where it is you would like to visit and start to kind of plan that. That will help you to get unbored. Cooking. Oh, we've never cooked so much ever. Saving money, delicious. It's amazing. Yeah, you learn a musical instrument. So clearly, guys, you can see in the chats there's a ton of ways to overcome boredom and challenge yourself, right? Remember, whenever you're outside of your comfort zone, you are in unfamiliar territory. So the comfort zone is also known as the familiar zone. So you want to challenge yourself to get outside of the comfort zone, which is simply unfamiliar. So anytime you challenge yourself with something new, a new skill or whatever, it helps you to be more present and then therefore overcoming the boredom. Cool. So becoming brilliant with empowering beliefs. So let's take a quick look at the definition of what is a belief. And we're going to go through this step by step on what is a belief system, how are they created, and then the two types of beliefs, which are limiting beliefs, which hold us back, and empowering beliefs, which drive us forward. So a belief is an acceptance that a statement is true or that something exists. So our belief is what we believe to be true, but may not necessarily be true. Our beliefs are not facts. A fact is, for example, 12 inches is 1 foot. That is a fact. Our belief systems are not necessarily true. What do I mean by that is let's take a look first at how our beliefs are created. First of all, we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. And we're having those thoughts every day, 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. 95% of those thoughts are the same as the day before. So in other words, our subconscious programming is 95%, and this is confirmed by Dr. Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, and Deepak Chopra. 95% of our thoughts are our subconscious programming. And so in other words, they're the same thoughts as we thought the day before. That means we only have potentially 5% of new thoughts per day. Now, this is based on the average, okay? 70% of most people's thoughts are negative. In other words, they're focusing on things that they don't want to happen in their lives. So coming back to that question about, getting sick or the anxiety and the fear, it's because those negative thoughts, our focus is focusing on what we don't want. As we focus, right, mentally on what we don't want, that will create emotions, those negative emotions. Those negative emotions will then fuel, there's a synergy between the two, and that will make us think even more negative thoughts. The repetition of those thoughts that we have again and again and again creates a neural network, a network of neurons in our brain, which we call a program or a habit. So in other words, you think a thought once and it's gone. You think a thought 10 times, but you start to think a thought again and again and again, you've now created a neural network. And with enough repetition and enough repetition, that creates your program or your habit, right? And the same example as before, driving a car. Before you drove a car, you had no neural network. You did not know how to drive a car. But then you practice and you practice and you practice. And with enough repetition and enough repetition, you created a neural network that linked your mind with all of those parts of your body, your feet, your hands, the turn signals, the clutch, the gear stick. You created a neural network called driving. And now you can drive almost automatically. You can drive and sip on your Starbucks and on the telephone and change lanes and talking to your friend all at the same time. Often getting to a destination and go, how did I get here? right? You were in what we call a trance, and you were using your subconscious programs to complete that action or the behavior. That hardwired network, right? Those neural networks become our belief system, or in other words, what we believe to be true. It's not based on fact, it's based on repetition. So in other words, a repetition of our thoughts again and again and again with enough practice, with enough repetition, boom, becomes your belief system, right? Your belief systems are your set of subconscious programs, habits, and perceptions on the way that you engage with the world around you. Most of the time, those programs and habits are totally unconscious, meaning you don't even need to think about it. They're automatic. Now, our belief systems, they are very unconscious, meaning we're often not aware. And for some of us on the call here, this may be the first time we've heard that our belief systems as a concept, right? So that's why we're going to move through step by step and kind of demystify what our belief systems are. Right, so where do our belief systems come from? First and foremost is our environment. In other words, the environment in which you grew up in, your parents, your caregivers, your immediate family, your friends in the neighborhood, the school that you went to, your belief systems were created by simply absorbing the belief systems of the people around you. What do I mean by that is, as a kid from the ages of 0 to 7 years old, we get imprinted with the belief systems of the people that we spend most time with, right? So let's take a look at a couple of examples of belief systems. A classic example relating to money and abundance. If, when you were growing up, you heard people around you say things like, money is the root of all evil, rich people are greedy, and rich people shouldn't be trusted. If you heard that kind of language as you were growing up, with enough repetition, as a 7-year-old kid, you don't really know what's right or wrong or good or bad. You're just going to absorb the belief systems of the people around you. So if with enough repetition, money is bad, money is bad, money is bad, you are going to grow up with that belief system that money is bad. So subconsciously, unconsciously, you will not be able to attract money into your life. Why? Because you have the belief system that money is bad. And as a little kid, you think, oh, I don't want to be bad, so I'm not going to have money. And so as a result, you do not attract abundance into your life. Yeah, so this is what we mean by our environment. We absorb the belief systems of the culture, the people, where we grew up. Obviously then, as we get to the ages of 7 to 14, we go through the process called modeling. So modeling means, like, we know Uncle John is cool, but Uncle Frank, he's a bit weird. So I don't want to spend time with Uncle Frank, but I want to spend time with Uncle John. Well, guess what? As you spend more time with Uncle John, you are going to absorb and replicate those belief systems that Uncle John has. Yeah? Then we begin to learn even more, and you start to think, well, I want this belief system and that belief system. You begin to have a vision of your future, significant events that happen in your life. These are all ways that we create and form our belief, especially past results, right? So if you had a lot of past results of failure, then with enough repetition, you would begin to develop the belief of, I am a failure. Anything I do doesn't work for me. So the beauty, though, of the work that we're doing here is to become aware of our current belief system, so that you can ask yourself, is this set of belief systems, these programs, are they helping me to achieve my goal, or are they holding me back from achieving my goal? So let's take a look at some examples here, guys. Because at the end of the day, there's two kinds of belief systems. Limiting beliefs that hold us back, or empowering beliefs that empower us to create the life that we want and deserve. So I'm going to put up a couple of examples here. As I'm going through the examples, I'd like you to share into the chat box as well some limiting beliefs that you're becoming aware of. But let's run through a couple first. I'm too young. That's a limiting belief. And by the way, how do you get a clue as to people's limiting belief? It's in the language that they use. So you'll hear people say, oh, I'm too young to be a leader, or I'm too young to lead this project, or I'm too young to lead that team, or I'm too young to do this, I'm too young to do that. That's a limiting belief. And that limiting belief, that conversation that they have with themselves, with enough repetition, boom, that becomes their program, and it becomes like a lens on how they perceive the world. In other words, our belief systems are like a lens on how we perceive the world and how we perceive ourselves in the world around us. So if we have limiting beliefs, it's like those lenses are scratched up and they've got mud and dirt, and we can't see the world for what it really is. It's limiting our perception of the world. So some people will say, I'm too young, I'm too young, I'm too young. Then one day they're going to wake up and they'll say, oh, I'm too old. Get out. I'm too old to learn new things. I'm too old to lead that team. I'm too old to start a business. I'm too old to get re-employed. I'm too old, I'm too old, I'm too old. And again, with enough repetition, it becomes a program. And guess what? It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. We all know the quote that Henry Ford says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So remember, it's the repetition of thoughts that create the belief systems. So whether you think you can is whether you believe you can, or whether you think you can't, whether you believe you can't, you're absolutely right, because that is how you're going to perceive the world. I'm not intelligent. I'm not smart enough. Oh, I'm stupid. I'm dumb. I'm not good enough. Money is evil. Rich people are evil. Rich people can't be trusted. The world is dangerous. It's not safe out there. People can't be trusted. Oh, this was my limiting belief. So you might not be able to tell, but I'm about 2 meters tall. Now, when I was growing up in Australia, I was basically legs and a head, right? I was very, very tall, and I was skinny like this. So that was not cool at school. So I developed this limiting belief that I'm too tall. I didn't want to be tall. I didn't want to be standing out. Now, where this gets interesting is as I was telling myself I'm too tall, what I'm really saying is it's safe to be average, right? And guess what? Every area of my life back then was average. Right? Even my posture, I shrank down to be average. But my EQ, average. My job, packing boxes in a factory, average. My relationships, the money that I had in the bank, every area of my life was filtered through that one core limiting belief. Right? Now, it wasn't until I learned NLP and these processes of limiting and empowering beliefs that I decided to change that limiting belief. And so basically, guys, once you've identified your limiting belief, you just want to ask yourself, what do I want instead, right? Or what is the opposite of that limiting belief that I'd like to begin to show up in my life? So for me, I simply said, I love to be tall. I love to be tall. It's great here. The air is fresh up here. Oh, I love to be tall. It's so good to be tall. I can see everything that's going on as I'm tall. So as I reprogram myself to I love to be tall, or I love to be outstanding, right? That's another word for tall, is outstanding. Everything in my life changed. My relationships, my EQ, my job, my willingness to get out of my comfort zone, my EQ, my finances, every single thing in my life took off like a rocket ship once I changed and removed that one limiting belief and then created an empowering belief, right? These limiting beliefs, guys, it's like a virus in the computer program. It slows you down. So we need to reformat. We need to get rid of those limiting viruses, those limiting beliefs, and then install the upgraded software, those empowering beliefs to help you achieve what you want to achieve. A lot of the corporate training I do around the region, a lot of people tell me that I'm too busy or I don't have enough time. Guess what? It's a limiting belief. Now, it might be true that you're a busy person, but here's the thing. If you keep telling yourself, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough time, boom. With enough repetition, congratulations, you've created a limiting belief that's going to hold you back. So instead, you simply want to create the opposite. I am productive. Busy people look at the world like this. Productive people want to get more done in less time. So as you install the program of I am productive, now you begin to see new ways to be more creative. You get better at delegation. You get better at managing your schedule, and you will find that you'll get more done in less time by installing that new empowering belief. Yeah, and it takes practice, right? Now, here are some other examples of empowering belief. And by the way, I want you to share, please, in the chat now, what are some examples of limiting belief that you have heard of, maybe for yourself or in the people around you. But empowering belief, I am the perfect age. I learn easily. I am worthy. The more I have, the more I can contribute, the more I can help. That's a really positive belief around money. Money comes to me easily and effortlessly. I live in a world of abundance. Whatever it is for you, use words and language that resonate with you. I am safe. I attract great people into my life. So let's take a look at some of the limiting beliefs. You are a woman. Oh, that's an empowering belief. I like that. I am forever young. Oh, I'm not good at math. Limiting belief. Yeah, so yeah, I don't have enough experience. So as we go through these slides, guys, begin to pay attention to your thoughts. What is it that you say to yourself regularly that could be a limiting belief? Because that's how we capture these limiting beliefs. Remember, they're unconscious most of the time. The way you capture and become aware of them is step number one, become aware of your thoughts on a moment-by-moment basis. And number two, become aware of the language that you use externally. I don't have what it takes, limiting belief. No one wants to listen to me. Limiting belief. I'm not as smart as others, limiting belief. And by the way, guys, language alert, limiting beliefs are lies and bullshit, right? They're simply not true. They are simply, for the most part, they've been absorbed from the world around us. So if you lived in an abusive environment where it said you'll never make anything in your life, you're a loser, you'll never learn. We don't have a choice, but as a kid, to absorb those programs. Now is the time to change those programs. I don't have PhD, limiting belief. Yeah. I really suck in math. So what I want you to do over the next couple of days, just keep a pen and paper somewhere near you and just observe using your metacognition. Your metacognition is your ability to observe your thoughts, emotions, and behavior as if you are a detached observer. Notice those thoughts that come up regularly and notice the language that comes out. For example, I'm always late. Hello, there's a limiting belief around time there. Or I can never lose weight. Hello, that's a limiting belief. And whatever you tell yourself repeatedly becomes true for you. So, how much time we got there? What's the time, guys? Awesome, 15 minutes. So the best tool to install an empowering belief is what we call an incantation. Okay, so this is the tool that you can use to install, and it's basically an upgrading your software. Those unconscious, subconscious programs, habits, beliefs, and perceptions, you want to install the new ones that make sure they're empowering. The quickest way to do that, in my experience, is with an NLP tool called an incantation. So what is an incantation? I'm glad you asked. An incantation is a positive statement that you repeat. Ideally, you repeat it out loud using all of your senses, your emotion, and your physiology. Your physiology is simply your body, to install an empowering belief. So in other words, we've all heard of affirmations, right? I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. That's a good start, but that's only a mental process. An incantation is you're using your mental faculties, but also your physiology, and you're feeling the emotions, right? And as you do that with repetition and repetition and repetition, with enough repetition, boom, it now becomes a subconscious program. It becomes your empowering belief systems. And what it's doing, it's you're clearing the mud and the scratches off the lenses on how you perceive yourself and the world around you. So let's take a look at some examples. Here is my dear friend, Tony Robbins. Tony's going to tell us a little bit about incantations. Let's have a listen.
And what you want to do is train a new one. So starting when I was 17, I started doing incantations, not affirmations. Affirmation, you go, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. What's the problem? You haven't changed your what? Your what? Physiology. If you don't change your physiology, you won't get anything. So an incantation is not only you speak it, but you embody what you're saying with all the intensity you can. And you do it with enough repetitions that it sticks in your head. Like It's a Small World, now the conversation in your head is always the same and it gives you what you want. So you use your body and your voice. So 17 years ago, I started doing things. I was working for Jim Rohn, this speaker, and I was 17 years old. I had long hair, minestrone soup, acne on my face. And I was trying to call on Bear Stearns type of people and convince them why they should go to this man's seminar and be more successful. I was driving a 1968 Volkswagen that I had earned at $40 a week as a janitor. The only way I did it was park far from the building and then go in, and I love people, and I believe that I put myself in state, and I was able to influence people that were far more successful than I was at the time. I would do something that I still do backstage and have done for 23 years because I don't hope I'm going to be in a good state, I demand it. So I do an incantation using my whole body. I'd say, I now command my subconscious mind to direct me in helping as many people as possible alive today to better their lives by giving me the strength, the emotion, the persuasion, the humor, the brevity, whatever it takes to show these people and get these people to change their lives now. And I would do that literally driving in my Volkswagen to a meeting in LA on the freeway for 40 minutes. People were looking at me, I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. They're going, I know he's a serial killer. I know he is. But by the time I entered that room, when two people meet, if there's rapport, the person who's most certain will always influence the other person. And I was totally certain, and they were trying to get revved up to certainty. Do you agree with this? Yes or no? I do another one because I was poor. I changed my mindset. I kept doing things, but I never got beyond it. I'd say God's wealth is circulating in my life. His wealth flows to me in avalanches of abundance. All my needs, desires, and goals are met instantaneously by infinite intelligence, for I'm one with God and God is everything. And I would imagine the abundance of my life, and I would feel so grateful. And a year later, I went from making $38,000 a year to making $1 million a year in 1 year. But successful people do what failures won't. You follow me on this? You know?
Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So what's really important, guys, when you craft your incantation, I'm going to give you a few tips on how to do that in a moment. You can't just think it, right? You got to say it out loud. You've got to engage your physiology. You've got to get passionate about it. Because that incantation, that is linked to the future you. That you that you want to become needs to be different than the you that you are now. So in other words, those goals that you want to achieve in your life or your business or relationships, you need to become someone else, or else you've already would have achieved it. So the incantation is like an acceleration on how to get your goals more quickly. Right, now for the rugby union fans, this is the All Blacks. I'm sure you're familiar with the haka. Let's just take a quick look here, because guess what? The haka is an example of an incantation. Many people think it's to put fear into the soul of the other team. That's a byproduct. Take a look at it. What we've learned about incantation now, what they're doing is they're putting themselves into a peak emotional state. They've engaged every neuron in their body to be a winner. And this is what it sounds like.
The Harker.
Right, now, I don't really know what they're saying. All I know is that they're using their physiology and they're lifting their emotional state so that they have a greater chance of victory. And this is the mechanics, guys, of why an incantation works. Our thoughts link to our body, right? Our physiology, the way we use our body. So there's a connection between what we think and how we use our body. The synergy of the two creates our emotional state, or in other words, how we feel in this moment in time. Why is that important? Because the way that we feel in this moment determines our behavior. Our behavior is simply the actions that we take or what we do, and that's going to create our results. So when you create your incantation, the focus area here is to elevate your emotional state. Why? Because when you're in a higher emotional state, you'll take better actions and better behaviors, and that's going to result in better results in your life. Think about it. We've all had the experience of waking up where our emotional state is very low. We know that our behavior and our actions are average, and then therefore our results are average. So if achieving that next level of success is important for you, whether it's starting your own business, getting promoted, navigating through this uncertainty, staying healthy and strong, whatever it is for you, you clearly want to be in a more elevated emotional state. So you need to have positive thoughts, you need to use positive language, in addition with your positive physiology, the way that you use your physiology. In doing so, you'll increase the results that you achieve. For example, here's a really, really simple one. All I need is within me now. I am strong, I am healthy, I can do it, yes. Right, so coming back to that question before, how do I overcome the fear and the anxiety that's going on in this uncertain time? Step number one, stop watching the news. Step number two, create a positive incantation, right? Something simple like this, I'm strong, I'm healthy, I can do it, yes. With enough repetition, this becomes your new program. This becomes your empowering belief system, and this becomes your lens on how you perceive the world, right? Now, it takes practice. It takes repetition. The first couple of times you do it, it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel strange, and you might even be home alone, and you'll be looking around, oh, this feels weird. Trust me, go for it. Practice it, practice it, practice it, and create your new upgraded software. Here's another example of what an incantation might look like for those with children.
Look, I can be a shark. Now my whole house is great. I can do anything good. I like my school. I like anything. I like my dad. I like my cousins. I like my aunts. I like my Allisons. I like my moms. I like my sisters. I like my dad. I like my hair. I like my haircuts. I like my pajamas. I like my stuff. I like my rooms. I like my whole house. My whole house is great. I can do anything good. Yeah. I can do anything good. Better than anyone.
Right. Thank you, Jessica. Not my child. And can you imagine, though, a child using that positive language on a day-by-day basis? That is going to create a very empowering set of belief systems, a very empowering way to look at herself in the world and the way that she perceives the world around her. So the incantation tips, and by the way, this works whether you're 4-year-old like little Jessica, 40-year-old or 80-year-old, right? It doesn't matter. That saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, not true. That we have a beautiful neuroscience process called neuroplasticity, which means we can create new neural networks, circuits, and programs in our brains, regardless of our age. So here are the tips. Use the words I am in the context of your identity or who you want to be. I am healthy. I am strong. I am intelligent. I am worthy. I am loved. I am grateful. And remember, this is not who you are now. It's who you want to be. Who do you need to become? What identity do you want to be in order to achieve the goals and the success in your life, whatever that is for you? Use I do in regards to the kind of actions that you will take, right? I do whatever it takes. I do the impossible, and link some kind of actions into your incantation. Use present tense, so not I will be or someday maybe in the future. Now I am. Make it present tense. And then finally, when you start to practice it, use your physiology, right? Stand up, ideally out loud, shout it off your balcony out over Bangkok or Manila or wherever you are. Practice it out loud. It takes at least 2 or 3 weeks to create that neural network. Write your incantation down, practice it, fine tune it, and write some bullet points, right, of the context of the identity or the skill or the capability, the emotions that you want to feel. Write those down at bullet points, then begin to construct almost like a song, right? It should kind of flow and be natural for you. So here are some other top tips for installing empowering beliefs. If anyone else would like to add some top tips, please put them in the chat box. Create your personal incantation and practice it daily. Become aware of your existing thoughts. What do you say to yourself? This is how you begin to catch those limiting beliefs that are holding us back. Become aware of the external language that you use. So what words are you saying out loud? That gives you a clue to your current belief system, right? So with that awareness of your current beliefs, it gives you fuel to create the new empowering belief. Does anyone else have any tips for creating or installing empowering beliefs? Please pop those into the chat. Nothing can stop me. That's a beautiful, empowering statement. Ooh, I am explosive energy. Nice. I see beyond. I can achieve everything. Beautiful. Yeah. Right. Another good way is to surround yourself with positive people and positive input. By positive input, I mean media and things like that that you allow into your thoughts. Remember, 60 to 70,000 thoughts, they are influenced by our environment. So if you're allowing negative input, that's going to give you negative thoughts, which will result in negative emotions. With enough repetition, you'll create those limiting beliefs. So instead, surround yourself with positive people, positive input, and with enough repetition, that will create your empowering belief. Link your incantation. So whatever you write for your incantation, link it to the goals that you want to achieve. So now I'm a managing director, or now I am the owner of my own successful business generating $1 million baht per month, or whatever it is for you. Incorporate your goals into your incantation. And if you do have a vision board, do your incantation in front of your vision board. Clearly, this is a really, really fun and good process that you can do during your retreat for those of you that have children, right? You can make a family incantation. Where you want to go on holiday after the lockdown finishes? What is important in your family? That love and trust and openness and respect. Incorporate that into an incantation. You can cut magazine pictures out for the kids. You can make a big poster and put it on the wall. And then you can do it like a little song and a dance as your family incantation. Yeah, it's just a really good way to feel good for no reason at all. And the benefit is that it becomes part of your program, part of your operating system. And then finally, where did I learn about all of this? Was through NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. If you want to deep dive and reprogram all of the programs, take a look at some NLP. You can do some self-study online, or you can join us in July. And that's pretty much it for today, guys. These companies here, pretty much every company on this list, I have shared NLP tools and techniques with them. So these tools of NLP, they're not just a personal development, woo-woo, wah-wah, feel-good tools. These are real tools that people can use in business, in your business, and in the companies that you work with. We've, trained around 15 countries around the region, sharing these NLP tools and techniques with companies. The next one is coming up in July, 9th to 13th is our 5-day NLP program. There's 4 international certificates. And we also have our ICF coaching program for those who are more interested in becoming a life or executive coach, a business coach. This is the program for you. And if you are part of an organization at the moment, helping companies to navigate these uncertain, unfamiliar times, we have a 4-week online webinar series for companies, kind of like what we're doing here, specifically for companies. So we can include their mission, vision, core values, and such. And remember, guys, be the change that you want to see in the world. You can't control what the government is going to do, how long we're on shutdown, when are they going to let us drink alcohol again? We can't control that. What you can control is yourself. So be the best version of yourself. Be the change that you want to see in the world around you. Start with you is my recommendation. So thank you all very much, everyone. If you joined in the call a bit late, don't worry, I'm going to send an email out later tonight. It'll have a replay of today's session. And yeah, I want to thank everyone for playing fully today. I'm going to unmute if you just want to make some noise and say goodbye to everybody.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much.
Hi. Thank you all. Hope to see you next week, next Wednesday, 1 o'clock.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Love you too. Bye.
You guys, miss you guys.